Rows of quiet storage doors can hide a very expensive empty warehouse. The real activity happens out of sight. Rented square footage paying every month. You see identical metal doors, a keypad at the entrance, and drive aisles with barely a car around. Maybe one employee sits in a small office. Maybe nobody is there at all. The ownership plan looks almost effortless. Buy a piece of land, divide a building into locked rooms, rent out those rooms, and collect recurring payments while the property sits quietly. But that silence can mean two very different things. It may mean hundreds of customers are paying every month and need almost no daily attention. Or the owner may be carrying thousands of square feet that earn nothing, while property taxes, insurance, maintenance, security, and debt continue without pause. Customer traffic tells you almost nothing. What matters is occupied, rentable square footage, the effective rent actually collected from it, and the cost of carrying everything that remains empty. A storage facility may look full because every building is finished and every door is installed. Economically, it may still be half built. The central question, then, is not how many doors stand behind the gate. It is how much of the space behind those doors is paying, at what price, and for how long. Before valuing that income, you need to know what kind of storage property those doors belong to. Self-storage is one label for several businesses with different costs, customers, and constraints. The simplest is a drive-up facility with non-climate-controlled units. Customers pass through a gate, drive straight to their unit, and load belongings through a roll-up door. Construction can be relatively straightforward compared with a multi-story building. Access is convenient, operations can stay lean, and large units work well for furniture, vehicles, renovation materials, or the contents of an entire home. The trade-off is land. The site consumes a lot of it, and the units remain exposed to outdoor temperature swings. Then you have the multi-story, climate-controlled facility. It may sit in a dense urban or suburban area where land is expensive, with customers moving belongings through hallways and elevators. Climate control can command higher rents because customers may be storing items sensitive to heat or humidity. But the owner has also bought heating and cooling equipment, indoor lighting, elevators, fire systems, corridors, and more enclosed space that must be maintained. A third model starts with an existing commercial building. An empty warehouse, former retail property, or another large structure may look cheaper than ground-up development. Conversion creates a different set of problems. Can the floor support the planned layout? Can customers reach upper levels without a struggle? Will local rules permit the use? Can the building be divided efficiently without creating awkward space that sits inside the property but is difficult to rent? Many facilities blend these formats. Drive-up units may surround a climate-controlled building. Small interior lockers may sit beside large exterior units. That mix matters because someone renting a compact unit for a few boxes behaves differently from a household storing the contents of a 4-bedroom home. Management changes the economics again. The owner can run the property directly, hire local employees, rely on remote systems, or pay a specialized company to handle marketing, reservations, access, collections, and customer service. Third-party management brings technology and operating experience, but its fee takes another share of property revenue. Picture two properties with the same 60,000 rentable square feet. One is a suburban drive-up facility beside expanding neighborhoods, where moving households want large, convenient units. The other is an urban, climate-controlled building that depends on elevators, online reservations, and dense demand within a short drive. Their square footage matches. Their economics do not. The owner is buying land, partitions, locks, and a surprisingly important map of nearby zip codes. More precisely, the purchase is a local customer pool, a particular mix of unit sizes, and a fixed amount of space that must earn money month after month. Once that mix has been built, changing it is difficult. An online price can change before lunch. A corridor packed with the wrong unit sizes cannot. Long before the first full month of rent arrives, the owner needs a site. That site needs suitable zoning or approval. The project may need entitlement work, engineering, drainage, utility connections, vehicle access, and enough visibility for customers to notice the property. Next come construction or conversion costs. Foundations, walls, roofs, paving, partitions, roll-up doors, fire protection, lighting, fencing, cameras, gate motors, keypad controls, signs, access software, and payment systems must all be paid for before revenue stabilizes. A multi-story building adds elevators and more complicated life safety systems. Climate control brings mechanical equipment, ductwork, energy use, and equipment that will eventually need replacing. Opening the gate does not stop the spending. The business still needs insurance, launch marketing, customer support, initial staffing or a remote management platform, cleaning, pest control, and enough cash to survive the months when most units are still waiting for their first tenant. Take an illustrative facility with 60,000 net rentable square feet divided among 600 units. Net rentable square feet is the space that can actually be leased to customers. It leaves out the office, hallways, equipment rooms, and other areas that support the property without generating unit rent directly. The building may be physically complete on opening day. All 600 doors can be locked, numbered, and ready. But with only 150 units occupied, the owner collects income from a small part of a property whose bills have already arrived in full. That period is called lease-up, the time it takes to move from opening occupancy toward a stable level supported by local demand. It may run longer than expected if the property opened too large, chose the wrong unit mix, entered a weak location, or began competing with several other projects at once. During lease-up, advertising may increase, promotions may grow more generous, and the owner may need to cover operating losses while also making loan payments. Keep one distinction in mind. Construction completion is not economic completion. The facility opens before the business is full. For the customer, the transaction still looks unusually attractive. Someone searches online, compares nearby locations, picks a unit size, accepts a monthly rate, receives a gate code, and puts belongings behind a locked door. The property does not manufacture something new for that customer every month. It does not serve a meal, repair a vehicle, or restock a shelf after each visit. Suppose a 10 by 10 unit contains 100 rentable square feet and carries an illustrative advertised rate of $150 per month. At first glance, that single door can produce $1,800 a year. Multiply it across hundreds of units, and the property starts to look like a collection of small rooms generating very large rent. The advertised rate, though, is only the starting point. The customer may get a move-in promotion. The unit may sit vacant between tenants. A payment may fail. The facility may pay card processing costs. Advertising brought the customer to the reservation page. Customer support helped finish the move-in. And every unit belongs to a property carrying taxes, insurance, security, repairs, software, and financing. Storage operators often call the advertised price the street rate. That is, the price offered to a new customer at that moment. What the property actually collects after promotions, vacancy, concessions, and payment losses is the effective rent. There may be other income. Depending on the operator and jurisdiction, a customer may pay an administrative charge, buy a lock, incur a late fee, or enroll in an insurance or tenant protection product. Those items can matter, but they vary between facilities. They cannot be used to make a weak rental model look healthy on paper. Which unit has more value? The one advertised at the highest monthly price, or the one that stays occupied at a sustainable rate for most of the year? The second unit can easily win. A door offered at $150 earns nothing while it sits empty. A slightly cheaper unit occupied continuously may bring in more annual revenue, need fewer promotions, and avoid another round of customer acquisition cost. The useful number is not the largest monthly price shown online. It is the revenue collected from that space over time. The apparent margin at the door can still be high. Once a unit is ready, adding another customer may require very little extra labor. That does not make the property cheap to operate. Most costs have merely moved away from the individual transaction and gathered at the facility level. So do not ask only what one door rents for today. Ask what the entire rentable floor earns over the year. Storage operators measure that by separating physical occupancy from economic occupancy. Physical occupancy tells you how much rentable space is occupied. If a 60,000 square foot property has 52,800 square feet rented, physical occupancy is 88%. Economic occupancy compares the revenue being collected with what the property could collect at its current full asking rates. A facility may have high physical occupancy and weaker economic occupancy because many tenants receive discounts, pay older below-market rates, or occupy units priced aggressively to avoid vacancy. The tension works in the other direction too. Higher prices can produce more revenue from customers who stay, but they can also push some tenants out. The owner is always balancing rent against retention. In-place rent is what existing tenants pay. It may differ from the street rate offered to a new customer. Revenue management is the system for adjusting those prices according to demand, availability, unit size, customer behavior, season, and competition. In plain language, the operator decides which doors are scarce, which are hard to fill, and how much each occupied customer can reasonably pay without damaging the wider revenue base. Unit mix complicates the decision. Small units can earn more rent per square foot because customers value having a private, locked space even when it is compact. Yet, dividing a building into more units creates more doors, accounts, move-ins, move-outs, locks, and customer interactions. Large units consume rentable square footage quickly and may suit moving households, but their rent per square foot can be lower. Break down the illustrative 10 by 10 unit. At $150 per month, 12 perfect months produce $1,800. Suppose the customer gets a half-month promotion, cutting the first year by $75. Then suppose the unit loses 1 month between customers, removing another $150. Payment losses and card costs reduce the collected amount further. That apparent $1,800 unit may produce something closer to $1,500 before receiving any share of the property-level expenses. Compare it with the same unit occupied continuously at an effective rate of $140 per month. The headline price is lower, yet 12 occupied months produce $1,680 before processing costs, with no vacant month and no new promotion. The cheaper-looking unit can collect more revenue. Lower prices are not always better. Durable occupancy has value. Now apply that logic to the whole illustrative facility. 60,000 rentable square feet at 88% physical occupancy produces 52,800 occupied square feet. At an illustrative average effective rent of $1.50 per occupied square foot each month, annual base rent is about $950,400. There is the central engine, occupied square footage multiplied by effective rent over time. The goal is not the maximum posted rent. It is the maximum durable revenue from the entire property. The property must keep some of that revenue after paying the operating ledger. Begin with property taxes. A storage facility may occupy substantial land and improvements, and the tax bill does not shrink because several corridors are empty. Insurance continues across the whole site. The same is true for fencing, cameras, lighting, gate systems, security monitoring, access software, and the maintenance that keeps customers and their property separated from the public. Drive aisles need paving and drainage, roofs eventually require repairs, doors fall out of alignment, gate motors break, cameras age. Pest control, cleaning, landscaping, snow removal where relevant, and general maintenance remain part of the operation even when customer contact is limited. Climate-controlled space may support stronger rents, but it adds energy costs and mechanical exposure. An air conditioning failure in a large enclosed building is more than an uncomfortable office problem. It interrupts a service customers are paying for. Elevators bring another maintenance obligation. especially where upper-floor units depend on them for practical access. Automation also makes some customer-facing costs easy to miss. Search advertising, listing platforms, call centers, remote support, payment processing, collection work, and reservation software turn local demand into paying occupancy. A keypad may eliminate the need for an employee to open the gate. It cannot answer every billing question, fix itself, or create demand for an empty row of units. Management costs money too. An owner-operated site may carry payroll and local administrative overhead directly. A remotely managed site replaces some on-site labor with software, centralized support, and monitoring. A third-party manager may charge a fee and pass through certain marketing or technology costs. The staff becomes harder to see. The work remains. Suppose the illustrative property produces roughly $950,000 in annual base rent and another $50,000 from previously established ancillary sources, putting total property revenue near $1 million. If property-level operating expenses are approximately $420,000, the property generates about $580,000 in net operating income. Net operating income is revenue minus the ordinary expenses needed to operate the property. It is calculated before loan principal and interest. That makes it useful for comparing property performance, but it is not the cash the owner gets to keep. With annual debt service of approximately $360,000, remaining cash falls to about $220,000 before major replacements and reserves. Put aside $60,000 for future roofs, paving, gates, climate equipment, and other capital needs, and illustrative owner cash drops to about $160,000. $1 million of property revenue, roughly $160,000 left after operating expenses, debt, and the capital reserve in this example. Before debt is not after debt. This is both the appeal and the danger of empty units. An occupied unit can add revenue without requiring a proportional increase in labor. That operating leverage is attractive. An empty unit, however, still carries its share of the land, construction cost, taxes, security, maintenance, and financing. The cost stays attached to the space, whether the space pays or not. At 88% occupancy and $1.50 in effective monthly rent per occupied square foot, the illustrative ledger works. Move those two variables slightly, and the owner's retained cash can move much more sharply. The first pressure is slower lease-up. Population growth may remain healthy while housing turnover slows. Fewer households move, fewer businesses need temporary inventory space. The property reaches 70% occupancy later than planned, but interest, taxes, insurance, and marketing continue on schedule. The second pressure appears across town. A new climate-controlled facility opens inside the same customer drive radius. It offers aggressive introductory prices and has hundreds of empty units to fill. Existing customers may not move immediately because transferring an entire storage unit is inconvenient. New customers, though, see both facilities on the same search page. The original property can lower street rates or offer larger promotions. That may defend physical occupancy while weakening economic occupancy. More doors have tenants, but the average amount collected from each occupied square foot falls. The third pressure comes from carrying costs. Insurance rises. A property tax reassessment raises the annual bill. Or the loan reaches refinancing at a higher cost than the owner originally modeled. None of that makes the facility more attractive to customers. It merely takes a larger piece of revenue already being collected. Put the three together. The illustrative facility falls from 88% to 82% occupancy. Effective rent softens because the new competitor discounts move-ins. Annual expenses rise while debt service stays unchanged. Nothing dramatic has happened. The gate still opens. The cameras still work. Most units remain occupied. From the road, the property looks almost unchanged. Its cash flow does not. National claims about storage demand can mislead when they are applied to a single address. Demand is local. A customer generally searches within a practical radius of home, work, or a moving route. The facility competes with rentable square footage already available inside that area, along with projects under construction that may open before its own loan is repaid. The relevant map shows current competitors, available unit sizes, advertised rates, planned developments, municipal permits, household growth, housing turnover, and new space entering the market. A neighborhood can add residents and still receive too much storage construction. Demand may grow. Supply may grow faster. The owner's costs remain attached to one property. Local supply decides how much pricing power that property has. Large public operators reveal this relationship because their reporting separates metrics that a casual observer might combine. Public Storage, for example, reports operating information that distinguishes same-store occupancy, rental revenue, and achieved rents across an established portfolio. Same-store reporting focuses on properties operating in both comparison periods. That reduces the distortion created when acquisitions or new developments enter the portfolio. The question is cleaner. Did the existing group of facilities earn more revenue from the space it already controlled? Occupancy cannot answer that by itself. Imagine a portfolio that remains nearly full while rates offered to new customers weaken. Existing tenants may keep paying established rents and protect current revenue for a while. But as tenants leave and replacements move in at lower prices, the new pricing environment begins spreading through the occupied base. Move-in demand matters before the property looks empty. The reverse can happen as well. A facility may accept modest vacancy while maintaining disciplined rates on the units it rents. If the occupancy loss is small and achieved rent remains strong, total revenue may hold up better than the physical occupancy number suggests. Public storage filings, therefore, discuss occupancy and rent together. One tells you how much capacity is in use. The other tells you what that capacity earns. Promotional pricing, tenant retention, local supply, and the gap between new customer rates and existing customer rates tie them together. A nearly full facility can lose momentum without a visible wave of move-outs. Softer rates for incoming customers can slowly reduce the property's revenue quality. At the same time, an established customer base provides some protection because moving stored belongings takes work. Many tenants will not switch facilities to save a small amount each month. That friction gives the operator some pricing power, but not an unlimited amount. Push increases too far, and customers consolidate, move, or decide the belongings are no longer worth the monthly bill. Jurisdictional rules and rental agreements may also determine how and when rates can change. The lesson from a large operator is not that every local property behaves like a national portfolio. Physical occupancy and achieved revenue still have to be read together. Portfolio averages may reveal the mechanism while hiding the neighborhood where it is strongest or weakest. Scale adds another kind of protection. A large operator can centralize online marketing, reservations, call centers, payment systems, pricing analysis, and access monitoring. It can compare move-in demand across many locations and determine whether a weak result belongs to one property, one city, or a wider market. It may also standardize cameras, gates, software, and operating procedures. Portfolio purchasing can improve consistency. Brand recognition may reduce friction when customers see several facilities in search results. Multiple locations can allow staff or resources to be shared across a market. Third-party management platforms offer some of those capabilities to properties the company does not own. An independent owner can pay for a larger system's marketing, technology, revenue management, and operating structure instead of building every function alone. An independent owner may have advantages as well. Local knowledge can be more precise. Decisions do not have to pass through several corporate layers. A well-located property with modest overhead may serve its customer base efficiently without national scale. Neither structure can manufacture demand. A sophisticated pricing system may identify hundreds of empty 10 by 10 units. It cannot create several hundred households that suddenly need them. Scale improves information, consistency, and the ability to absorb a weak property. Geographic diversification matters too. A portfolio can offset softness in one neighborhood with strength elsewhere. The owner of a single facility has concentrated the entire outcome in one local supply and demand equation. The best protection is not the raw number of doors owned. It is better information about occupied space, disciplined pricing, diversified cash flow, and enough financial room to carry temporary vacancy without making desperate decisions. Return to the illustrative 60,000 square foot facility and put the same property through 2 different years. In the strong year, physical occupancy reaches 92%. That puts 55,200 square feet under rent. Effective rent stays at $1.50 per occupied square foot each month. Annual base rent reaches about $993,600. Add $50,000 of established ancillary income, and total revenue comes to about $1,043,600. Suppose ordinary expense growth raises property-level costs slightly to $425,000. Net operating income is about $618,600. Debt service remains $360,000. The capital reserve remains $60,000. Illustrative owner cash is about $198,600. The facility still looks quiet. Most customers pay automatically. Move-ins and move-outs stay manageable. Promotions remain controlled, and no major capital interruption consumes the reserve. Give that same building an ordinary pressure year. Occupancy falls to 82% after the nearby competitor opens. The property now has 49,200 occupied square feet. Effective monthly rent slips from $1.50 to $1.44 per occupied square foot as new customer pricing weakens and promotions grow heavier. Annual base rent falls to about $850,200. Ancillary income declines with occupancy to roughly $45,000. Total revenue is about $895,200. Property-level expenses rise to approximately $450,000 because insurance, taxes, marketing, and routine costs do not fall with occupancy. Net operating income drops to roughly $445,200. Debt service is still $360,000. The capital reserve is still $60,000. Illustrative owner cash is now only about $25,200. Same land, same buildings, same 600 doors. Very different results. Measured at the strong year rate, the occupancy difference accounts for about $108,000 in lost annual base rent. The 6-cent decline in effective monthly rent removes another roughly $35,000. Lower ancillary income takes away about $5,000. Higher property expenses claim another $25,000. Those ordinary changes reduce owner cash by more than $170,000. It took no new disaster. 10 percentage points of occupancy, a modest rate reduction, and higher carrying costs were enough. This is operating leverage in plain view. As more occupied square feet pay rent, much of the added revenue can pass through a cost structure that does not rise proportionally. When occupancy and effective rent fall, that same fixed structure reverses the effect. Taxes barely move. Security barely moves. The gate still needs power. The roof still covers every unit. Debt does not care whether the drive aisle looks busy. A quiet property can be efficient because its customers do not need daily service. Quiet alone proves nothing. Stand outside the gate once more. The buildings are still. Every door looks the same. One customer enters a code, drives to a unit, and leaves 20 minutes later. Nothing in that scene reveals whether the facility is producing nearly $200,000 of annual owner cash or barely $25,000 under the illustrative ledger. The answer lies in information you cannot see from the road. Which unit sizes are full? How much of the 60,000 rentable square feet is occupied? What are existing tenants actually paying after promotions and discounts? How much new supply is opening within the same drive radius? And what does the owner spend each year to carry the entire property, empty sections included? The 10 by 10 unit, advertised at $150, matters only when its annual collected revenue beats the value of leaving that space empty for a better price. A larger unit works only when durable demand justifies its lower rent per square foot. Climate control pays only when the premium covers the added energy, equipment, and maintenance. Access technology changes labor. It does not alter the underlying equation. Cameras, gates, online reservations, remote support, and automated billing may make the facility efficient. They cannot make vacant square footage produce revenue. Pricing power matters, but customer willingness and nearby alternatives limit it. Occupancy matters, but filling the property with deeply discounted tenants can weaken the economics inside a full-looking building. Unit mix matters, but the ideal mix is local. A neighborhood filled with apartment residents may need smaller climate-controlled units. A growing suburban market may absorb larger drive-up space. Build the wrong mix, and fixing it takes more than changing a number on a website. This is what the owner actually manages: occupied rentable square footage multiplied by effective rent, minus the operating, financing, and capital costs of carrying the entire property, all constrained by nearby supply. Customers see locked doors. The business underneath is capacity and pricing inside a very local property market.